Okay, calling the meeting to order. On the agenda, I'm going to make two changes unless there's a strong objection. We have under number 3, schedule the next meeting date, and we will not have even discussed any of the issues that are on the agenda. So I think logically that should go. We should schedule our meeting after the committee comments. And certainly, we want the public to be able to comment on all of these issues, these discussion items. So I'm moving the public comment period down after the, just before the committee comments, because we'll want to hear what they have to say before the committee in toto discusses and have our comments. If there's no objection to that, the schedule looks fine, our agenda, I should say. So the meeting's called to order, and we'll start by having a Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a flag over there. And Dave, do you mind being the leading us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, I had one other thing I wanted to do on this agenda. It doesn't affect anything that we're doing, but there's the issue of, let's see, what was I talked to, because we're going to have our supervisor going to be a little bit late. Can you help me if I had moved the item? Do you know what item it was that I wanted to move? Number 3.
Number 3 under number 5.
3 on number 5. Oh, okay. Yes, the Voters' Choice Act, because we've all had a chance to look at that, and I want to make sure that Supervisor Ding's here when we make any kind of a recommendation on that. So number 3 will be moved down before the, let's see, public comment. Yes.
Do we have to take a vote on accepting the agenda?
Excuse me, speak up so everybody can hear. Yes.
Do we take a vote on accepting the agenda?
No, usually the chairman sets it unless there's an objection, and you can challenge the chair and vote and change the order, but you don't want to challenge the chair, do you? Oh, okay. I got my boxing gloves on. All right, roll call, and I'd like the appointed folks first to call out their names. Can I start with Patricia Barrett? Are you appointed, or are you an alternate?
I'm appointed,
You're, okay, so
District 1.
you're here.
I'm present.
Christian Santos,
Christian Santos, District 1, present.
are you an alternate, or are you?
I think I'm appointed.
We're all appointed, but I'm just wondering if you're an alternate. And it's on my list already, but you're saving me some time. Pamela Sloan,
Yes, I'm appointed.
and I know Carol Hadley's an alternate. She's not here, she's absent.
Chair, Nicole said that I'm appointed and primary, and that Christian is
I'm an alternate.
Right,
And so if you have any questions, maybe ask Nicole, she can verify it.
no, that's fine. You are picked, and he is the alternate. David Cushman,
I am appointed.
yes. Amy Rubio. Present? Nope. Absent? I'm here. Beckman's my alternate. Is he here? Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, I'm your alternate. I was appointed to be your alternate.
Yes, you're appointed. Christina Gonzaga.
Here.
Where's here?
Right here.
Right here.
Oh, okay. Hiding, Christina. Christina, are you an alternate or you were?
Primary.
Okay. And Janice Vermillion,
Yep, Vermeulen, I'm an alternate.
alternate, okay. All right, that takes care of the roll call. Which takes us to, because we're way behind in approving 2 months of minutes, and we'll take them one at a time in case you folks have questions on either one of them. The first one is June 1st of 2023. If there's no objections or no additions, corrections, or deletions to these minutes,
Chair, may I make an amendment to the minutes?
you have a suggestion?
Yes, I noticed under public comments, I believe one of the names of the individuals is misspelled. I think Rita Jones should be Ria Jones, R-I-A, not R-I-T-A Jones.
Okay, Ria, that's under discussion number 4. Any other suggestions on the minutes? If not, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes of Thursday, June 1st.
Subject to the amendment, I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
As far as voting, what we're going to do, we haven't gotten to it, so we're going to have the alternates participate in all the discussions, but not in the voting. And so unless there's an objection to that, I think that makes for a smoother meeting, makes it quicker. If there's no objection, I would like to have a motion from one of the 5 members that are present here.
I make a motion to accept with the amendment of the correction of the name.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any objections? If not, the minutes will be accepted as corrected.
No objection.
The second set of minutes that we have to approve is Thursday, August the 10th. Are there any corrections to those minutes? If there's no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to have those accepted.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, motion
I'll
made.
second.
For our record, would just tell them who you are, so for the record. I know it's Dave Cushman and
Pat Barrett.
Pat Barrett seconded the motion. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposition? Hearing,
I need to abstain. I was not present.
okay. Okay, so we have one abstention. We have a 4-0 vote, a 4-1 vote, or 4 vote. All right, now to the agenda. We have the minutes approved. Consent items. The, let's see, did we move the California voter registration voter list maintenance, Secretary of State? Who is the presenter on that?
There is no presentation after the last meeting. The Secretary of State talked with several counties and responded to the sheriff's presentation and provided what they refer to as a CCROV that goes out to county clerks and elections officials. And so that document's been provided to the board along with all of the documentation that they provided.
The Board of Supervisors, is that the
The
board?
Secretary of State,
Yeah, you said it's provided to the board?
your board here.
Here, this
Yes.
board. Okay, so there's no action on that consent item, except that. The next item is adopt a rule regarding the role of alternates and voting. And I've kind of made a suggestion that we have the alternates not vote unless the appointed member is not here. And unless there's some discussion about that, we'll proceed that way. I want to, because sometimes in case something came up and I'm not here, I'd like to appoint a vice chair. And I have asked Dave to be the vice chair. And unless there's an objection or someone else has a nominee that they want to put up as vice chair, you will be officially the vice chair. Okay, thank you for accepting. That, we have moved number.
Chair Amador.
Yes,
Sorry, Erin Sakata, Deputy County Counsel, for sake of the record. With respect to the discussion items as to the rule for the alternates, we were expecting a motion regarding the adoption of the rule. It will be a standing rule and a policy for this
would you
body.
speak into the microphone? I'm gonna be 80 years old October,
I'll try to-
October 5th,
and
and
I
you
talk
can
fast,
buy
so
me a gift.
I apologize. With the respect to the discussion item, there is an action requested that the board, or excuse me, this committee adopt the standing rule that's proposed. So if we could get a motion and a vote on that, as well as the recommended appointment.
And that is to which item
So
specifically?
we're looking at V1.
Regarding the role of alternates in voting?
Yes, so
Okay.
it would be a standing rule for this committee, so we're asking that the committee make a motion and
An
then take a
official
formal vote.
voting on it instead of me saying unless there's any objection. All right, let's have a motion.
I'll move.
It's been moved.
I'll
Is there
second.
second on the motion? Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions, any no votes? Okay, the motion carries. Is that the same rules that would go as far as the vice chairman that I appoint?
This proposed rule does not address the appointment of the vice chair. However, we talked about that being a policy decision as well for this committee. So to the extent that the chair is proposing an appointee and the body agrees to it, I think a formal motion would be acceptable as well.
Okay, so the past action has been affirmed. Now we go to, because we moved, I think we moved to our presentation on the vote by mail ballot drop boxes.
Was there a vote on the vice chair?
Yes, there was. I said, is there any objections? There was no objections. Yeah, you can object, but you can't vote, so.
Well, I don't get to vote, I don't get to vote anyway, so
Yeah,
I didn't hear a vote, so that's all.
yeah, I said unless there's any objection, and,
Well, that didn't sound like a vote, though.
yeah.
Chair, if you prefer, I mean, if you want to go the formal process of your motion being the appointment and then the vote, that can be a better record for sake of.
A safer
Christmas
record? The chair doesn't have that. Then I will entertain a motion to accept my recommendation for vice chair. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to accept your recommendation of David Cushman
Yes, David,
for alternate for
for vice chair.
in your presence, in your absence.
Thank you.
I'll
Is there-
second it.
All right, it's been made and seconded. Is there any or is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And so the vote is 4-0. I'm gonna make or break ties. All right, it is now time for a presentation by the Holly Moore and Jody Graham. This is the vote by mail drop boxes.
Well, thank you, everyone, for having us this evening. Let me introduce ourselves. I'm Holly Moore, and this is Jody Graham. We are both residents of San Joaquin County. And I'd like to pass out there's a handout to the EAC board, which will correspond with the last 3 slides of the presentation. So if you just start over there, Jody, and then just pass it around over here. So I made 20 copies, so there's plenty for the board and then extra for. Thank you. You can take a look at it now. Of course, it goes along with what we're saying, but it really directly corresponds with the last 3 slides. It's the, actually the exact copy of the last 3 slides. I was hoping to give this presentation before this past Tuesday, before the $200,000 was approved to be transferred for the new drop boxes, but you'll see that the majority of this presentation is still pertinent and even more so. So let's get started. So Jody and I visited all 25 drop boxes in San Joaquin County, and we photographed them. And this venture took us about, Jody corrected me today, about 2 weeks to do this actually. And our votes are precious. And we thought, are our ballots, so we asked ourselves, are our ballots safe or could they be stolen? What's the security like on drop boxes? Are ballots treated with the same security as a bank protects cash? Because we've been told that our signature checking is the same as what banks use. So we thought, oh, well, if that's the case, then our ballots are kind of like cash, right? So we need to protect them heavily. And could ballot traffickers add ballots? Have they done so in the past? Are the drop boxes under surveillance so that criminals can be caught immediately and prosecuted? And how much do drop boxes cost the taxpayer? And there we go. So the goals of this presentation are to see if the ballots placed in the drop boxes are safe at every step so that voters have faith in the voting system, to show if there are deficiencies in San Joaquin County's ballot drop box system, and to offer solutions to bolster our election system. So here we go. These are drop boxes, and here's one in Manteca City Hall. And here are our topics: the number of drop boxes in the county, the cost, security, chain of custody, the USPS, which is the United States Postal Service, versus Dropbox, and the location. So what is a Dropbox? Let's just start off easy. A ballot Dropbox is a receptacle where voters can return absentee or mail ballots in sealed and signed envelopes, right? And the definitions from the National Conference of State Legislatures. And this is another of our Dropboxes in Ripon City Hall. So how many Dropboxes are actually required? And this is quite a lengthy paragraph there, code. And let's see, the bottom line right here is one drop box for every 30,000 registered voters is what we need. So how many drop boxes are required? In San Joaquin County, we had 385,940 registered voters, so only 13 drop boxes were required. However, in the 2022 election, the ROV placed 25 drop boxes around San Joaquin County and now wants even more. So, and dirty rolls obviously affect this calculation. If we have dead voters, reserved ghost voters, and non-citizens in the rolls, now we get even more drop boxes than we actually need because the numbers are inflated. So double the number is double the cost. 25 drop boxes, I just did a little graph, 25 versus 13. So each drop box needs to be installed, monitored, cleared out, removed, stored, etc. And the 12 extra drop boxes are an unnecessary drain on taxpayers. And now we have 16 more on top of that. And drop boxes are targets for ballot trafficking. So the fewer the boxes, the better from a security aspect. So our solution, as you'll see on the top of your paper there, is to use only 13 drop boxes. And here's a little humor for you, considering gas prices. Okay. So the state formula for how often to collect ballots from drop boxes. And here again is another lengthy thing that we've broken down for you. The basic formula is ballots are to be collected every 4 days from 29 days to 10 days before the election, and then every 2 days from day 9 before the election to election day. That's 9 collection times for an election cycle. So the more collections, obviously, the greater the cost, correct? Because you have to have manpower to go do that. So Dropbox logs indicate that ballots were collected 23 times rather than the 9 minimum required ballot collections. That's almost 3 times the number of collections required. Now, the state does give the registrar of voters some discretion in this matter, and the drop boxes were not even close to being full. So there's no need for that many collections, however. So the average daily total number of ballots placed in the drop boxes was just 41, not including election day. Election day was pretty high. Each collection over the minimum results in extra taxpayer cost, of course. So if you have 4 days times 41 ballots, that's 164 ballots, and drop boxes hold 1,500 ballots. So there was 160 ballots in there, and it can hold 1,500. So it's not even close to being full after 4 days usually. And it's not intellectually honest to say drop boxes are totally safe while simultaneously saying it's not safe to keep the ballots in the boxes. We need to go collect them more often. If ballots are safe, then the minimum 9 collections are sufficient. And more costs. And so the ROV asked to reappropriate $194,516 to purchase 29 new larger drop boxes that can be secured to the ground outside and are open 24 hours a day. In 2020, we spent $50,000 on new drop boxes. That was actually CTCL, Center for Tech and Civic Life, Zuckerberg money. Our drop boxes are only 3 years old and are perfectly functional. They are guaranteed to last 7 to 10 years, so why are they being replaced? They have only been used in 4 elections: the 2020 election, 2021 recall, 2022 primary, and the 2022 general election. So according to the manufacturer, as I said, the current Dropbox capacity is 1,500 ballots, approximately. And according to Dropbox logs provided by the ROV, the Dropboxes are nowhere near filled to capacity, as I said, except on election day. But ballots are collected more often on election day to make up for that. And larger capacity units are not required and are an unnecessary expense. So our solutions is reduce costs by keeping the number of Dropboxes to a minimum and don't buy any more Dropboxes. So here's another California code for you. An unstaffed Dropbox placed inside a building shall be secured in a manner that will prevent unauthorized removal. So here we go. This is secured properly. This is at Tracy Motorsports in Tracy, and you can see that nice big chain right around the pillar. But here is Central Vita Church in California. I mean in Stockton, rather, Stockton, California, obviously. There's the bracket right here to put the chain through, but to secure it, but it's empty. There's no chain on this at all, and it's inside. Here's another one that's unsecured. This is in Four Corners Restaurant in Tracy, right by the front door, on wheels. Could have been scooted right out. But we were told that this was secure. This is my favorite. Chain to removable stands. It would have been better to have no chain at all. Does that look secure to you? But we were told it was. This is Jody's favorite at the Van Ryden Winery. This is not secured. This is chained to a removable fire grate. Does that look secure to you? Bolting.
And this one was actually secured in the same manner for 2 elections. There was another picture on social media that showed that it had been secured this way for 2 elections.
Now, bolting drop boxes to the ground isn't secure either. The USPS, the Postal Service, is actually removing the blue mailboxes that are bolted to the ground because of vandalism. You could pour water inside, you could put a match, you could light them on fire. How would we ever count up burnt ballots? How do we do that? So vandalism makes a bolted down drop box unsecure.
Well, and if you've noticed, these boxes were inside buildings. And so the proposal now is that they be outside, which makes them open 24 hours a day and more susceptible to vandalism, even more than they were inside the buildings.
So more security measures that we need. Here's Election Code Division 3, Chapter 1. All vote-by-mail drop-box ballot drop-off locations shall be open at least during regular business hours, beginning not less than 28 days before the day of the election and on the day of the election. At least one vote-by-mail ballot drop-off location shall be an exterior drop box that is available for a minimum of 12 hours per day. I know I just said a lot. But this point C right here, we have one of the ballot drop boxes is right outside, and it meets this criteria right here. It just needs to be open for 12 hours a day. So like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., it doesn't need to be open 24 hours a day. Just the 12 hours a day is.
But it is open 24 hours.
Right, it is open 24 hours a day, and it shouldn't be. Just the 12 is enough. And California elections last for 28 days. Remember, we have election months now, 2 months now, election season, not just election day. And they're open for 28 days. So providing drop boxes during regular government, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 business hours is ample time to vote. All drop boxes should be locked at 5 o'clock.
Well, and that is how it was in many of the locations where they were located. A lot of the businesses closed at 5 o'clock, so that the ballot drop boxes were effectively closed at 5.
Right, we don't want them open 24 hours a day because no one needs to vote at midnight. No one does. And people, if you do need to vote at midnight, you can use a blue mailbox outside, or you can go to the post office if you need more than that. Some of them are open on Saturdays, so you could go there. So our solutions? Use only police, sheriff, and fire stations where drop boxes can be properly secured. Don't put them in wineries. There are 87 police, sheriff, and fire stations in this county. That's more than enough to hold 13 drop boxes. Also the solution, lock the drop boxes at 5 p.m., 9 to 5, lock them every day, and write local laws that ensure ballot safety, such as drop boxes must be in police stations and locked at 5 p.m. Codify those laws. Next is video surveillance. So California Code of Regulations says, if feasible, drop boxes shall be monitored by a video security surveillance system or an internal camera. And I was like, internal camera, is that inside the drop box or is that inside the building? That was whoever wrote that law. Okay, so that was kind of vague. And then according to CISA, the second point there, many election offices monitor their drop boxes via 24-hour video surveillance. That's what we want. 24-hour eyes on our drop boxes. Not what we have precious cash in those drop boxes. The eyes should be on them continually. So videos are the best record of crimes at drop boxes, and you can see by the yellow circles up there. This is in Lorena Supermarket in Lathrop. There's some security cameras up top, and I'm standing next to this drop box taking the pictures up there. But here's a problem. Video cameras are often not trained or pointed directly at the drop boxes. This drop box here was right below this camera, which is facing into the store. And you can hardly blame store owners, can you? Because store owners really want to protect their stuff. They don't care about drop boxes. Their cameras, they're not going to switch their whole system to look at the drop boxes. They're going to keep their system looking at their things. And if incidentally they catch a bad guy, maybe. But really that's not how it's going to work. And you can see, so that camera is pointed out into the store and not down. The drop box is right here. That camera is pointed out into the store. We would want that trained downward. And here's another problem. Videos are often deleted or recorded over after a week or two, which destroys evidence. How often do stores keep their video? Not very long. They don't keep it forever, certainly. All video surrounding drop boxes needs to be saved.
This one is at the Clements Market. That's where that drop box is located. Right next to the wine.
Okay, Jody, it's your.
Okay, so I hope everybody has seen the movie 2,000 Mules. It really shows how critical video surveillance is to prove the ballot trafficking, and how vital the drop boxes are in this overall scheme of ballot trafficking. The photo the mule takes of the ballots at the drop box is his receipt for payment. Note, ballot harvesting is legal in California. However, ballot trafficking is not. At any time money is paid to someone to steal, surrender, or deposit ballots, that is ballot trafficking. Drop boxes must be heavily monitored to preserve election integrity. To discourage ballot trafficking, video surveillance must capture a front view to show the face of the person delivering the ballots and a side view to see if the ballots are photographed before being deposited. If a person visits multiple drop boxes in a day or over a course of several days or weeks, this may indicate ballot trafficking. Video is our only record of potential criminal activity. How do we know if there's ballot trafficking if the video is not reviewed constantly during the 28 days the drop boxes are in place? What good is it to see the video after the election? Ballot trafficking must be halted immediately so the elections are not jeopardized or influenced. Are there ballot mules in San Joaquin County? Yes. Citizens have witnessed ballot traffickers taking photos of ballots before depositing them. Solutions. Surveillance recordings must be clear, recording 24 hours per day, live streamed, constantly monitored by the ROV, and saved for 22 months, the same as ballots from a federal election. Right now, this footage, to our knowledge, is not collected and not saved. Add prominent signage to every drop box which states you are being recorded. Solution, the ROV must send out a strong public information campaign that it is illegal to traffic ballots, the county supervisors must make it a crime to traffic ballots, and the sheriff must prosecute. Chain of custody bipartisan collection teams. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short, that council provides guidance for state, local, tribal, and territorial election officials. Whether you are collecting ballots from a USPS facility, drop box, or both, you will need drop box collection teams. And we do have collection teams that go out and collect them. Ideally, these are bipartisan teams, poll workers or temporary workers hired to drive a collection route and pick up ballots on a regular basis. Election integrity shouldn't be a bipartisan issue. Bipartisan teams assure that all parties have confidence in the voting system. Bipartisan teams have hindered election fraud in other states. So the solutions. Collection teams must be comprised of 2 people from different political parties for security and public perception. Keep in mind that these are the 2 people that are going to the ballot box. They are opening it. It is an open box inside. They are pulling it out. At any point, they could actually infuse more ballots into the box. They have access to the ballots when they are taking them out. As I understand, sometimes they are transferred into a bag, and then the bag is sealed. But it is important to have bipartisan teams that are collecting these ballots and having access to them. All temporary employees working at the ROV must be San Joaquin residents and registered to vote as a requirement of employment. It makes sense to hire people from our community and that you have some skin in the game when we're running our elections. Solution, the county must hire equal numbers of people from various parties as temporary election workers. So the United States Postal Service versus drop boxes. Ballots can be placed in either a post office box or a drop box. Taxpayers already pay the USPS for mail transportation service. In fact, there are a total of 87 post offices and blue mailboxes in San Joaquin County. Why are we paying for 2 redundant mail transportation services? We did not pay for 2 services before 2020, and COVID is over. We have been told that people feel safer using drop boxes than mailboxes, so drop boxes have been promoted over the USPS. Why? The reason stated was because people knew their ballot would go straight to the ROV and arrive on time to be counted. That may have been the reason in 2020, but now California Elections Code Division 3, Chapter 1, states that ballots sent through the USPS can legally arrive 7 days after the election day. So if timeliness is now a moot point, why isn't the post office touted as being safe? Key point. If a person puts a ballot into a USPS receptacle that they fraudulently filled out or trafficked, they are committing a federal crime. There are no federal laws regarding the fraudulent use of drop boxes. Drop boxes make it more convenient and safer for criminals to inject fraudulent ballots into the election system. Drop boxes are used to avoid the penalties of federal law and circumvent the prosecution of election crimes. Is this why drop boxes are used by mules? This may explain the huge push to use drop boxes instead of the USPS since they were introduced during COVID. So where to put the drop boxes? California Code of Regulations 20133, determination of drop box locations, basically gives the ROV some discretion in where they are put, but they should consider at a minimum concentrations of population, geographic areas, voter convenience, proximity to public transportation, community-based locations, security, and available funding. Distance to post offices and blue USPS mailboxes should be taken into consideration as well. 17 of the 25 drop boxes are less than 1 mile from a post office or a blue mailbox.
That's everything above the red line.
12 of the 25 are less than a half mile from a post office or a blue mailbox. Those 12 could easily be removed from our current system to reduce the number to 13. Nearly 50% of the drop boxes in San Joaquin County are within a half mile of a post office or mailbox. That's not convenience, that's waste. In fact, there's a post office just 1 block from here, but there's a drop box right outside. 6 drop boxes, 24%, are less than 1,000 feet from a post office or a mailbox. This is Clements Market, is just 180 feet away. So you have a drop box at the market and a brick and mortar building 180 feet away. Post offices are already conveniently located in every community. Farmington Circle K is just 528 feet away. You have the Circle K, the drop box inside, and then a post office right across the street. 2 drop boxes are about 50 feet from a blue USPS mailbox. You have to walk past the mailbox to get to the drop box. This is Stockton Ace Hardware. You walk right by that box to go in the door to get to the drop box. And at Young's Payless, same thing. You walk right by the mailbox and go into the building to get to the blue drop box. It's harder to park at the Manteca City Hall and walk to the drop box inside than to drive up to the mailbox outside. Neighborhood USPS managed mailboxes further lessen the need for more than 13 drop boxes. Solution: use the minimum number of drop boxes and put them in police and fire stations and sheriff stations because they are secure locations. They already have the camera monitoring. They have the personnel, and it's a great way to have the community interact with our first responders. So as a recap of the solutions, stop the purchase of any more drop boxes. One thing I wanted to add, in the pictures of the drop boxes and how they were secured, it's not a drop box failure. It's an installation failure. The drop boxes have the measures to be secure. We don't need new boxes. We need to put them in better places. Okay? Use the minimum number of drop boxes required, utilizing the boxes that the ROV already owns. Use only police, sheriff, and fire stations, once again, because they're secure. Lock the drop boxes even there at 5 p.m. And like we said, there were many of them that were already locked at 5 p.m. or closed on certain days, or even at the city halls, closed every other Friday. Surveillance recordings must be clear, recording 24 hours per day, live streamed, constantly monitored by the ROV, and saved for 22 months, the same time frame as ballots in a federal election. Add prominent signage to every Dropbox location which states, "You are being recorded." The ROV must send out a strong public information campaign that it is illegal to traffic ballots. The county supervisors must write laws making ballot trafficking a crime, and the sheriff must prosecute them. Collection teams must be comprised of 2 people from different political parties for security measures and public perception. And the county must hire equal numbers of people from various parties as temporary election workers. All temporary employees working at the ROV must be a resident of San Joaquin County and registered to vote as a requirement of employment. The Board of Supervisors must write local laws that ensure election safety. Now, just as an update to what has transpired this week, they did reapportion the $195,000 to purchase new drop boxes. And so many of you may be asking, what can I do? You can contact your supervisor and let them know your displeasure with the decision to spend $200,000 on new drop boxes that will be more open and more vulnerable. That $200,000 could be spent on better surveillance. Supervisors who voted yes to approve this were Supervisor Patty, Supervisor Rickman, and Supervisor Villapadua. You can also call the two that voted no and give them an attaboy. That's Supervisor Canapa and Supervisor Ding. They wanted this committee to be able to make their recommendations to the ROV office before that decision was made. Another thing you can do is you can work the election. We need local residents to go out and work our elections. There are applications available. You can work election day. You will get paid. You will get trained. You can work for 60 days before the election, or 60, including some time after the election. So we need people to get involved, sign up, and work. Okay? So we've got applications back there. Go to your supervisors' meetings. Talk about election integrity. Talk about the safety of your drop boxes. Talk about any of this, but go to the supervisors' meeting and make your voice heard. Okay? All right?
I have, if you can stay there, I'd like to give the Election Integrity Committee an opportunity to ask you any questions if they have any. And what I like to do, even though we have appointed members, as far as discussion, I know we have the public discussion, but I think the alternates that are coming here every week that are on this committee should also ask any questions they might have. But I'd like to start with the members, if you have any questions of the presentations.
I don't have any questions. I just think that Olivia is probably so thankful that you guys did such diligent work showing where our flaws are so that she can sit up there and her team can back you guys up on a lot of the stuff that's going on. We all want security on our votes. And so I was sitting there going, did they do this on their own? Did they get paid to do this? You know, should we hire them? As we see movies like this where they hire thieves to break into stores to see where the flaws are. You know what I mean? So I'm like, they really did a lot of work for this. And it's good because now we see what is wrong, you know, and it's room for corrections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I'll get this one. I agree with you. I think anytime you take time to look at the system, whether it's the voting system or whatever it is, it's important because you find out if there's problems or issues and you can help address them. And I'm hoping that Olivia had the opportunity to really take some notes tonight, and I appreciate your presentation. I'm going to speak for myself. I can't trust the post office to even deliver my mail. And I hate to say that because I have had issues of even getting bills sent to me or even mailing something
We
out.
all have, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I think there needs to be a little more exploration here. It would be a matter of sitting down with the postal system and talking with them. We don't even know, I'm sure you don't know, although it's a good idea, I'm not saying it's a bad concept, but I think there's a lot of things that have to get worked out, and they're gonna have to agree if we go in this kind of.
Keep in mind that you can still vote in person. You don't have to use either one of these systems. You can actually go on election day and vote in person. And I think that has gotten very confusing with the COVID and all the lockdowns that we had. But you can physically go to your precinct and vote on the day of, or fill out your ballot and take it into your precinct, or drop it off here.
Which is the safest way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know that. And the other thing is too, some post offices aren't open till 5 o'clock. I'm
Okay,
having a problem with Mike, but
Can
anyway.
we limit it
just
to
comment.
questions to them, and when
Okay.
we have our committee comments, we can
Okay,
bring
I'm
up some
sorry.
of those things, that's okay. Any questions of the presentation?
Thank you again for the presentation. I really appreciated it. I just wanted to add one question. On the slide regarding a Dropbox that had to be open or monitored for 12 hours, you said one was required, a minimum of one. Is that one just per county?
Yeah.
One per county, okay.
And that's the one that's outside this building.
Again, thank you so much for the presentation. I too saw the same Dinesh's movie, 2000 Mules. So my specific question here is, during the last four election cycles, correct? Because you brought that up in the slideshow. Do you have any? Let me carefully phrase this. This is again coming from me. Any evidence to support either in photo evidence or just a recording off of your personal cell phones of any kind of ballot trafficking activity in either one of those locations in the span of the last four election cycles that you delineated?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you.
We'll move the agenda if there's we'll have public comment later, but Supervisor Ding is here.
Chairman Amador, real quick.
Oh, we did? I'm sorry. I
Just wanted
apologize.
to commend you for the time and effort you took, the diligence you put into it. It was eye-opening for me. I really appreciate that. I don't have a specific question for you, but it did raise some questions in my mind that I will bring up later on. But thank you.
Thank you for pointing out. I don't want to ignore him. He knows where I live. Now, item number 3, discuss the Voters' Choice Act. We had moved it down on the agenda. So I think we have to fish or cut bait now on the Voters' Choice Act as far as a committee here, Election Advisory Committee. So I'd like to just open up the discussion, and if maybe if Supervisor Ding might have some comments regarding it. Always? Well, you have the floor, sir.
I'm gonna save you my rendition of the Australian ballot. I think everybody's heard enough from me on that. I want to tell you how much you're appreciated and respected. You take your time out of your day to come down here. And I don't think a lot of individuals realize what a public service that is. And it's something I really want to encourage in this county. Unlike a lot of the supervisoral districts, District 4 is pretty much a lot of municipal advisory committees because it covers such a wide swath. And so, it's hard to be in Linden and Lockford and Woodbridge and Lodi and North Stockton all at one time. And I do understand, some of us, some of you show up every Tuesday. And again, it's, whether, the members agree or disagree with what you have to say, you're honoring your civic duty. And I, for one, have got a great deal of respect. We had a vote at the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, and I want to commend Supervisor Canepa, who also stood with me and really wanted to wait for the opinions of this group who has dedicated so much time to hear what you had to say before making their own decision. So other than that, I think you've heard everything I have to say. I just again wanted to say thank you and with the deepest respect.
Thank you, and I actually stayed through the whole Board of Supervisors meeting at my desk, at my computer. And I thought, wow, he's really getting thrashed here. So that's my supervisor, but you look okay. Looks like you survived. Yeah, you lost. You need to have another 2 sessions like that then. And all kidding aside now, let us discuss, because we don't have the sense of the committee as far as the Voters' Choice Act. And so is there any discussion from the committee? I think we have to fish or cut bait on that issue as to whether we want to accept it or not accept the Voters' Choice Act. Anybody on the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I might be coming from a cynical place, but I've been around the block a number of times. It seems to me that the biggest issue for us is the cost. because between the two of them, I don't know that either one of them offers a lot of extra ballot security or voter integrity. But what I would say is that if we could save a modest enough money by picking the cheaper of the two, that would be far better served to take that money and dedicate it to a sheriff's investigative detective on an annual basis who does ballot security as his job. And I think that that would be the absolute best way to achieve anything we're trying to get here. I don't see that spending money one way or the other on drop boxes or any of these other window dressing things. The state of California has tied our hands, and I don't see that there's anything we can do other than to have a dedicated sheriff's deputy investigator constantly looking at ballot security. And that's,
What I'd like to do as a recommendation to the board from the committee is maybe by motion, I'll entertain any motion, if there is one.
I'd like to make a motion that our committee recommends to the Board of Supervisors that our county not adopt the Voters' Choice Act.
Is there a second on that motion? We have two anxious seconds over there. We'll take one
I'll
of them.
second it. Okay.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Through the chair.
Yes.
If it's appropriate, I just want to share that the Voters' Choice Act, there is no action needed by the board to not go Voters' Choice Act. The only action needed by our Board of Supervisors if they chose to implement it. So this would just be my cue that we are taking this and not bringing it back to the board in April as we had intended. And that's what I would gather from this.
Right, and the reason I am entertaining a vote to the Board of Supervisors so they know the sense of how we feel about it. So if there's any doubt in their mind, we have strongly conveyed that we don't want it. So with that, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, the voting members? Aye. All right, I am the only one that didn't vote. It's a unanimous, it's 4-0, so that'll be our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Our next,
Board Chair, can I ask Olivia one question? So as you said, though, even though that this was voted from this committee to them, they can still vote for it.
I'm going to let Deputy Sakata answer that.
Yes, great question. Yes, so this board, Supervisor Ding, you look like you want to speak, but is advisory in nature. And so the ROV has previously represented to the board that she has an intention of taking the Voters' Choice Act item back to the board, the full board, for further discussion. And as part of that record, she intends to supplement some of the prior information that was provided with more accurate information regarding what other jurisdictions are doing, the cost associated with what other jurisdictions are doing, and then certainly the record would represent that this body, this committee, has voted against implementing the VCA.
thank you.
Tony?
Yes.
So as in the previous administrations of the holders of my seat, and I've spoken to all of them, and one of the things that they mentioned to me that they were most frustrated by was when you have groups such as yourselves who spend a vast amount of time on these issues, much more than, I mean, as a supervisor, I sit on 12 committees, and I've been here twice today. I've been to the Grape Festival. I've been to, I'm all over the place. So we really, I do, put a lot of weight on those that have spent a lot of time digging into the minutiae of these issues. And I'm hoping that my fellow supervisors, and I think they're tired of me talking about the Australian ballot. The only thing I'm gonna ask them to do is please understand that you've spent a great deal of time, and if they're gonna override your decision, that I had asked they do their homework with the deepest of respect. So, thank you.
With that, we had moved on the agenda, the public comment. I'd like to hear the public comment before we make our comments as a committee, because I have something I'd like to say, and I'll wait till then regarding this committee and its future.
Through the chair.
Olivia, did you?
Yeah,
Yes.
just quickly, and so when I do go in front of the board, please know it's not a snub or a tiff to this committee, but it's my duty as the ROV to present that. So I hear you all. I still have to uphold my duty, so please don't take that as we're snubbing anything you're saying here tonight in any way, okay? Thank you.
We do not take it personal. We're too old for that. At least I am. All right, any public comment? Yes, you have to.
She did public comment.
Oh,
Penny here from our office, she did public comment, so she put them in order as she received them from anyone. If anyone needs a public comment card, Penny's here to collect those for you.
oh, this is so much easier. David Diskin. Do I go up there? Yes, so we can see you and put a number underneath your picture.
Hi, my name is David Diskin. I'm in Lodi, California. Steve Ding, or my supervisor. First of all, I want to thank the presentation that you guys just saw. I agree with some of it. I love the idea of having bipartisan workers, more cameras in front of the drop boxes, locking them down. Some of those pictures you guys took were appalling, and I'm so glad that you did that. But I want to be honest about everything that was in that presentation. If I was to summarize what I think I just heard, you want to rely more on the U.S. Postal Service than you do on the drop boxes provided by the Registrar of Voters. Who among you have never had you or a neighbor had a post office box broken into or had something lost or stolen in the mail? Those little blue boxes that you see on the side of the road and the post office boxes that are at those federal buildings are not more secure than the ROV boxes. They weigh less. There's no requirement for cameras. They are easy to reach into, easy to break into. A truck can easily knock those over. And those boxes that the county installs for ballots, they are built to withstand the impact of a truck. They're also retrieved far less often. You said, could ballot traffickers add ballots to those boxes? Of course they can, and we don't want trafficking. But moving over to US Postal Service's boxes, that's not going to impact the amount of trafficking in any sense. If I wanted to traffic ballots, I could go to the one on the corner in that blue box and drop 100 in, and there's no camera that would catch that. So the idea that you're trying to improve security is completely misguided. You want to talk about how many drop boxes are required? I understand, but let's remember that 31% of all voters in 2020 found those boxes to be more convenient, and they used that to place their treasured, precious vote. They didn't want to go to a post office to do it for whatever reason, probably because the post office is not as secure as these boxes. You want to recommend fewer checks of the drop boxes, but at the same time, don't you see how fewer checks of those drop boxes make those boxes less secure? So now you're creating, in your own argument, some kind of misrepresentation of what you're trying to say. You want to say that there were 41 ballots per day, not including Election Day. I don't know why you wouldn't include Election Day in your statistics, but even still, let me give you that. That's 25,000 ballots, not including Election Day, that were collected in those boxes. On some boxes, another 1,500 on Election Day alone in a box. And there are, as you said, multiple boxes. That's $20,000 that taxpayers are not paying in postage. All of your math seems to have forgotten postage. Yes, I don't pay postage, but taxpayers pay for that postage to the U.S. Postal
David,
Service.
in all fairness to you, I didn't tell you that you would have 3 minutes, but why don't you take 30 more seconds?
I appreciate that.
Thank you
so much. You provided great photos of those insecure drop boxes. I appreciate that. Let's get them fixed. You want to close drop boxes at 5 o'clock p.m.? What about the nurse or the teacher who is working until 5 o'clock p.m.? What are they supposed to do? You want them to go to the post office? The post office is closed. And again, now we're back to an insecure drop box outside. You have photos of mules. I'm sorry, but in my generation and in the generation that follows me, everyone is taking selfies when they're voting and doing their civic duty to do so. A photograph of someone taking a ballot or while they're dropping, that is not a photographic evidence of a mule. And Holly and Jody, you just went around capturing photos of every single drop box. How is that not misinterpreted as photographs of mules? Look, our 2014 our 2014 election provides the biggest problem.
I don't want to
with this.
get the hook, but you're past your.
One more sentence. 800 ballots were lost in 2014.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Did you have, Go ahead, finish
in
up.
2014's election, the U.S. Postal Service lost 800 ballots in our county. And you want to move to that? No. Thank you. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you. Holly Moore. And is it Victor Rolls? Three minutes.
Thank you very much. This isn't about drop boxes this time. I was reading through the Secretary of State instructions attached to the agenda, instructing us to check the voter rolls, or rather the ROV for deaths, people who've moved, felons. That's really good. But what she doesn't give instructions for? Non-citizens. According to the Constitution, non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. Checking non-citizens for driver's license and social security numbers as the instructions direct is useless. Because based on AB 60, which was attached to the agenda packet, in California in 2016, 800,000 non-citizens were given driver's licenses. So checking for driver's licenses is useless to see if they have them. They already have them. They gave them to them. That's about 14,000 non-citizens per county, and that was 7 years ago in 2016. Because of motor voter laws, those people were put right onto the voting rolls unless they opted out not to go on. But for the sake of argument, let's say that there are 10,000 non-citizens on our voter rolls. Those voter rolls are extremely dirty. How will you get them off? Not one of them should receive a ballot. It's unconstitutional. Not one of them should get a ballot. So I see two solutions. Many counties are using the jury rolls to cross-check with the voter rolls. So if you're trying to get out of jury duty service, what's the first thing you do? You flip it over on the back and you look for one of the excuses that you can check to get out, right? Get out of jury. Okay, the first one, the very top one, it says, I'm not a citizen. Check, and then they get out. That's how you do. So you check that list of people who are not on the jury, who won't serve for jury duty. You check it against the voter rolls. A lot of states and counties are doing that now and pulling those people who say that they're not citizens, pulling them out of the voter rolls. That's what we need to do. The other one is look at the voter rolls themselves. There's a column that says country of birth. If they are not born in the U.S., they have to bring in their naturalization papers. If they don't do it by the time that the ballots are to be sent out, they don't get a ballot sent to them. It's as easy as that. They have to prove that they're citizens. Lots of people get naturalized. Bring your paperwork in. Everybody has to do it. So we demand clean voter rolls. Removing all non-citizens is as high a priority as removing dead voters off of the voter rolls. Check them against the jury rolls or have them bring in proof of citizenship. It's very easy. Thank you.
Thank you. You stayed well within your 3 minutes. Bill Smith.
Hey, everybody. Bill Smith. I'd just like to make a comment about the ballot boxes and the collection of ballots. I have a little inside knowledge on what happens with this ballot box out here in front. I've watched many mules take pictures of it and then stuff it with ballots. I personally have watched this. When we collect ballots and we need to send people out to collect ballots, they don't need to go out in rented vans. They need to go out in county vehicles. County vehicles have GPS. That way we can watch where they've been, where they've gone, what they've collected, and what they've done. That way we know what's going on. It's very important. In the past, we've rented vans here, and we've sent them out to collect ballots. We need to do it differently. And I like the idea of bipartisan groups going out. And I think everybody that works on the campaign or on the election day should have a badge that signifies what they are. They're independent, Republican, or Democrat. That way we can look and we know. If we're the public and we look at them, we can say, hey, that guy's an independent. That guy's a Democrat. That guy's a Republican. It's easy to spot, and it's not against the law.
Mihalia Robb. And then David Robb after her, if you'll stand by.
I have one simple question. Does the recommendations of this EAC committee matter at all? That's my question.
That's a good question. David Robb.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank our two presenters for an excellent presentation on the dangers and issues around drop boxes. It's quite a shame that our supervisors couldn't wait 2 days to listen to this. I think that their vote on the issue may have been significantly different. I do have to commend the two supervisors who had the courage to stand up and say, let's wait. I don't have the same feeling toward the other three. One thing that, though, we need to remember, if it were not for vote by mail, drop boxes would have no reason for their existence. Vote by mail universally was adopted in California as a response to COVID. That emergency is now passed, and the justification for vote by mail should be also passed, but it's not yet. So the fact that we have drop boxes conveys a mistaken impression that a vote by mail ballot has to be returned in a drop box. No, it doesn't. In fact, you don't even have to use the vote by mail ballot. You can actually continue, as you have in years past, to vote in person. In fact, that's encouraged. Ghosts don't tend to vote in person. Non-citizens don't tend to vote in person. That activity of voting in person on election day should be encouraged and should be a major theme for our ROV in the future, instead of encouraging people to use drop boxes or even mailboxes. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of concern given to security of drop boxes. That's really a moot issue, because once a ballot is in a drop box or in the post office, it's actually fairly secure and is likely to be passed on for counting. But we're concerned about election fraud. And you may recall my presentation about a month ago on this very issue. And we do have a problem with fraud here. The thing about a fraudulent ballot is that once it is filled out, that is when the fraud happens. It's not when it goes in the drop box. It's not when it goes in the mailbox. It happens well before either of those events. So about the only purpose a drop box has is making sure that the fraudulent ballot is safe and kept safe until it is counted. Now, the only check we have against a fraudulent ballot being counted is the signature checking. Now, the signature checking, we have no evidence of its effectiveness. It may be good at finding things, it may not, but a signature check can only tell you if the signature matches a reference. It can't tell you if that ballot is fraudulent or the contents of that ballot are incorrect.
Your time is up.
Okay. Anyway.
You can wrap it up if you have a last sentence.
So we do have kind of a red herring here in drop boxes. We really should be considering more, how do we emphasize voting in person? Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Ferrari, Joe Ferrari? Yes. And then it'll be Molly Watkins.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time. So yeah, I just want to reiterate, I think we need to look at this from the perspective of ordinances, like was mentioned in the presentation. I think, we need to really consider the recommendations being thrown into the ordinance in, whatever the suggestions that were made and the solutions should be codified, I think. Maybe should be a motion for that at some point, I believe. I think some major issues in the ordinances should be, number one, codifying fraud using the boxes, much like mail postal fraud, because I don't think it's fair to have one side having a federal protections, in the mail and putting the ballots over here, and there's no legal repercussions. I think we need to have some enforcement, and I think it needs to be maximum, whatever the county maximum. If I don't know if it's a misdemeanor or a felony, whatever the county can come up with, I'm not really sure about that. But I think that needs to be emphasized. I think maybe considering also, in addition to what was put here, biometric fingerprints put on the boxes in order to open them. I don't think you should just be able to open the box and no one knows who put the ballots in because of the trafficking thing. It would also give the sheriff better information. So you put your like they do with certain employees, and certain employers will for the pay stubs they'll put their biometric ID. It'll show up their name and their information. And basically. It would be good to have, like some kind of saved date. Every time someone puts it in, there's, who it is, right? And you can kind of, I don't know, maybe do a registry of people that are, that can do this. I don't know, but it would be really a good idea to do that. I think also, the logic about, like Rob was saying, about COVID being over, we're not allowed to make comments to the board that are read, when we're at home anymore because, COVID's over, right? So we could submit it to the record or submit it to, Steve over here, but they don't get read by Rachel the board anymore. And I think that same logic is, well, if we can't do that, then why are we behaving like COVID's still going on when we've got these, the voting situation? I think we need to be consistent on both. I think the sheriff's fraud hotline needs to be on the boxes. There needs to be clear on there. So that if someone sees something funny and they go, oh, that guy was taking snapshots of the ballot, right? I mean, he wasn't taking a selfie. I think that was kind of goofy comment, but anyhow, that's my opinion. And then I think we've always used the PO all these years. So why is it suddenly condemned? What's the problem with it? And, why are the boxes the new norm? If COVID's done, the boxes should be minimized. I think it's silly, to go that path. I'm also going to say that I'm displeased about the way the decision was made to spend the nearly $200,000. I really think procedures are put in place. I think they need to be followed. The rule of law needs to be followed in that, and it's in the order of things, the procedure. And I also am upset about a comment that was made earlier about more accurate info for the VCA. That's the opinion of the council. That's not fact. Fact is objective. That's subjective opinion. More accurate is not the opinion that's going to come from the county council. That's going to come from the facts that are given at these things and looked over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Molly Watkins. I think the issue at hand is that we as a county, because the state of California has code, we have to have drop boxes. We don't want them, we don't like them, we think they're silly, but we have to have them. So let's do the minimum. Let's do 13. Let's put them in a safe, secure place like a firehouse or a police station, because those locations are strategically placed in our county because the residents live around there. So that's the perfect place to put the 13 boxes that we have to have. Therefore, we've checked the box and completed the required task. I think it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Knott.
Good evening. Normally I speak Tuesday in the morning, so it's hard to say good evening, but thank you for the time. I guess for me, what I would say is that thank you to the EAC, all the people who've taken the time to be here and to learn. I know for myself, that's been an important thing for me, is to learn the importance of my vote, to know the value of my vote, to know the importance of, as Supervisor Ding has said, my civic duty. In doing that, not only do I protect myself, but I protect each and every citizen here that's represented. And I think that's what's important. And I value the other side's opinion. What I got from today's presentation from Ms. Moore and Ms. Graham is that while we have to have these things, we don't have to have them in the excessive number. The limiting of those things makes it still available to people who need them. So I think we have to look at the number. We don't need the excessive number. And I think it's important to also basically let people know the importance of your vote is that you're able to go and know that your vote counts. And that means, I hate to say it, folks, but I've done homework. When you go in person, your vote is secure. Your vote is secure. They're able to check your ID. They know who you are. That eliminates fraud. The drop boxes, they promote fraud. And people need to know that. And ROV Hill, I appreciate you saying that you're working on behalf of the citizens of San Joaquin County. Well, I'm a citizen too. And I want to know that my vote counts. I want to have faith in the system. The VCA, I've done my homework, and I know that you're doing your homework. I don't know where you're doing your homework. I don't know where you're doing your homework. It's not safe. VCA is not a good idea. It takes from the citizens of San Joaquin County. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jody Graham, and I'm going to cut it off with Rhea Jones because I'd like our committee to discuss some of these issues. So Rhea is after Jody.
I just felt like we needed to come up and make some things clear. We are not for ballot drop boxes or for the USPS. We are actually for people going on voting day in person, seeing their community, being involved in the process, and voting that way. However, with COVID, the laws have changed, and it says we must mail out the ballots using the United States Postal Service. I'm assuming that everybody gets their ballot, so it is an option to send it back.
Or 2 or 3 ballots.
We are not advocating for the USPS, nor are we endorsing them. We are merely working within the guidelines that we know that our ROV must work within. The less that there are, the better it is, because it's not safe. And we do stand by that, but to be very clear, we are not advocating for the USPS or the ballot drop boxes. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
I tried really hard not to talk, but I can't help it. All right, so I'm going to come at you in the eyes of a poll worker. I'm a poll worker, and I love doing it. I think it's an interesting, fun day. But the most heartbreaking is when you see people, and I've seen many, dozens of them each year, each election, come to vote, look them up. Sorry, you've already voted. And they come undone. They are stuck with a provisional ballot. I took up buying voter rolls. You can ask Olivia. It's a hobby. I have found thousands of illegal voters in our voter rolls. I have firsthand knowledge of that. It does exist. And I have hung out at drop boxes, sipping a little glass of wine, I must admit, but I did. And yes, there are mules. And if I see 1, 2, 3 ballots, yep, husband, wife, grandma, okay, got it. But when you see 15 or 20, that's a whole nother subject. And yes, I am a witness to that. It does happen. Voter drop boxes are not secure. Citizens are here speaking loudly because the elections belong to citizens. They don't belong to the county. The county works for us. All these nice folks who work for the county, they're our employees. We're here standing up, talking to you, taking the time out of our day and saying, we're here, please listen. This committee should not be a hollow committee. They are not here to appease the county officials, and they're just gonna march on through spending the money they wanna spend, irregardless of what we think and what we say. It's our money, it's our tax money. It belongs to us, and our voices should count. Irregardless if we have the money for drop boxes, should we? Just because we can, that doesn't mean we should. I love the suggestion about spending some of the money on the sheriff's department and security. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll take my money to that one. Anyway, I just ask that you give our voices and this committee some respect. You don't have to push for the VC, the centralized voting. You can just skip that conversation if that's what the actual citizens and this committee ask for. It's not a requirement. You could show up, put it on the ballot or on the agenda and just say thanks, but no thanks. I've changed my mind. That's what I'm asking. The citizens and this election, we have it, not you. It's our election. And we should have a voice. And Steve Ding has done a great job trying to help us speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. Following the agenda as amended, our next would be committee comments, and then after that, schedule our next meeting. And before we go into committee comments, Rhea, I agree. We shouldn't be a hollow committee. I think that when they created this committee, I'm sure, like Michaela Robb said, does our recommendation really matter? Well, the only way we'll find out is when we make recommendations and we go to work. So far, this committee has had 3 presentations. We've had the San Jose County Sheriff, we've had David Robb, and we've had a drop box presentation. And in order not to be a hollow committee, I think it's time for us to become a public working committee. And so what I am suggesting is that our next meetings, even though it's a public, we should be discussing some of these issues and making recommendations. But with that, I'd like to, and this is the time after the committee and their alternates also, I want to hear their input. But I'd like to start with the committee if you have any comments. This is the time for our comments.
Chair, I have a comment. So, yeah, you stole the floor from me. I don't think this is a black and white kind of a situation. I think there's more gray in there. I think as an advisory, we don't just say, hey, it passed 4-0. I think, as you said, we need to make it a working committee and make recommendations, because there are things that are with the work with me, act. And there are a lot that has to do with what our public is saying. And me as an old person, I liked going in and punching those little holes, But the bottom line is, I don't think that we should just turn over and say, hey, we're against it. I think with Olivia and a working committee, that we should come up with some ideas. I think that vote should be pulled and revisited. I don't know how you can do that, but maybe there's a legal way of doing it. Okay, maybe there is. But I think we do need to have a working committee.
Members of the committee?
Chair, I have it's not really a comment, it's more like a request, if that's all possible. In light of the presentation that was given to us. The request specifically here is it at all possible, maybe at the next meeting, we can see tangible evidence to support the photos and any videotape recordings that were done at these locations, and maybe not even specifically at these particular locations that were displayed during the presentation. It could be any location that had a drop box during any of the last 4 election cycles. If they have, if the presenters have anything to support the materials that were portrayed during the presentation, and the reason if the question to me is why, well, validation, that's one. Okay, validation to support the presentation, and secondly, create awareness. There's always going to be a contrarian point of view to it, and that's always welcomed. But if one side can offer evidentiary support to conclude their thesis, I don't really see the reason why not, or what's the crime in doing so. That's my question.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee?
I do, but I want to make sure the rest of the committee. Go ahead, Mr. Beckman.
Chairman, I work in a realm where I'm used to the state of California tying our hands and making it difficult to do what we want to do. And in this situation, it has become abundantly clear to me that voter integrity is something that it's almost impossible for us to do anything about under the state law, which is why I come back to whether we have ballot boxes or the Postal Service, whether it's a federal crime or a state crime, it doesn't really matter. It's like going 65 down 99 or I-5. How many go 75 or 80 or 85 or 90? And unless there's a cop around, you just do it. And I think voter integrity is the same situation. It's going to happen here in San Joaquin County. Folks are just going to do it unless we have our own little cop on duty. And I think that's why we need a sheriff's investigator or something like that. One single dedicated person. When the sheriff's department was here doing their presentation, what I heard from them was they couldn't find anybody who's ever investigated this stuff. They asked around the state, and they couldn't find somebody who has a lot of experience in investigating voter fraud or voter crimes or voter registration crimes. And so it seems like it's something that's glaringly lacking in experience, and something that we probably would be better off to have somebody here that folks everywhere else can come and call our guy. So maybe the best thing we can do, and as far as I can concern, the only thing we're spending any money on at all is a dedicated sheriff's investigator to focus on that.
David?
I want to piggyback off and say I agree with the suggestion that this committee become more of a working committee that offers solutions and recommendations. It's in line with our title as an advisory committee. I would like to see us advise on different things, and if it's okay, since we have the Supervisor Ding here, I just thought if I could just ask a question to him while he's here. In your opinion, as a supervisor, would it be beneficial to you to have us as a committee come to the board with recommendations and ideas to piggyback off of?
Can I answer you in my follow-up comment, because it does encapsulate that? Ready? Okay. So the reason we put this committee together in the first place was one idea, and that was to try to restore faith in our election system, period. There are certain things we have to do that are state mandated. We're not dealing with those. It really doesn't matter about, the drop boxes at all, and it's one of the reasons I didn't think it was a good idea, because even the sheriff who testified Tuesday said the shenanigans were happening before they hit the drop boxes. So that wasn't the big deal. But when you're talking about being a working group, I want to see a working participatory group. And let me tell you what I mean by that. And maybe I watched too much Andy Griffith growing up or something. I really do believe that election day voting is bigger than just an election. It's about building a community. It's about working together. I truly believe that poll workers, when they put on that badge and they take the responsibility, they wear a whole different hat. I had made a comment, and some people had, ridiculed me on Facebook when I had mentioned, get the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, whoever else is interested in our elections, and adopt a polling place. I really do believe that when people put on that different hat and they take that civic responsibility, they do it right as Americans. So as a working group, and I've talked to Ms. Hale about this over and over again. This mic doesn't like me. Where I'd like to see some efforts is, yes, we have these state mandates, but if we want to talk about election day voting, well, darn it, you're going to have to do something about it. And that means that you're going to have to get involved, and you're going to have to find groups and maybe talk about adopt a polling place location. I want to see people coming out on election day with their I voted stickers. I want to see them on Facebook. It goes all the way back to the broken windows policies of police departments. Strong communities make safe communities. And I think we can all build this together, and I think that ought to be the goal, is restoring faith in our voting system. And the way to do that is get as many people involved as possible. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about it, Olivia, as well, but I really want to make a firm commitment that we aren't just talking about election day voting, that we're starting to put together staff groups, and we're starting to coordinate and saying, hey, these are the neighborhoods that have very strong voting in the past, and this is where we want to concentrate. Let's take a look at having different groups adopt a polling place like they did in, I hate this thing, the presentation we had from the assistant register of voters, where it's not a new idea. There are no new ideas. It's just ones that have been given proper effort. They've done this in another county, and he testified to this, and they haven't had any problem with their same-day voting, and they have the same groups adopting polling places over and over again. This isn't an us versus them thing, and I think in a way it's kind of turned that way, and we need to stop. And as elected officials, I represent everybody in this county. And let's do what people don't think we can do. But it is going to take all of you to participate. It's going to be more than just stomping our feet. It's getting on the phone with Olivia and saying, I've got volunteers. Let's look at this for a polling place, and let's get this thing done. And for that, I absolutely agree with you. It's got to be a working, participatory group.
Thank you, Supervisor. Anyone else, before I summarize these comments and make a suggestion?
Through the chair. So just a couple of opportunities to get involved in what we're doing right now. We have an ongoing temporary election technician recruitment. Those are for folks that are going to work in our office through the county. That is an open opportunity. There's also our stock clerk position that's a temporary position. Those are reoccurring recruitments. You can go on the county's job apps page and apply to work in our office. Yes, it is a full commitment because we're asking you to work 40 hours a week and maybe some more to support us. There's also the ability to sign up to be a poll worker to work on election day. You do get paid to do that. We're taking those applications at any time, including polling locations. And when Supervisor Ding brought it to our attention, hey, let's get out there, who wants to be a polling location? And we've made cards at all of our outreach events. We're asking folks if they're interested in being a polling location or supporting that. And we've not gotten a lot of response back to that. And so together we can do that. When our outreach team goes out, they have those poll worker applications. They have the links to provide to people so that they can sign up for those temporary jobs. We have the cards to ask them to be a polling location. There are some mandates where we have to do an ADA survey on those locations. There's things we have to do because they're required, but there are plenty of opportunities, and we're asking for it, but we're not hearing a lot of it, unfortunately.
Through the chair, Olivia, do you have a starting map of where are polling locations for the next election, what we've already identified?
We don't know until we know what's going to ballot. So it always depends on what happens during the filing period. Now, we have 400 polling locations in our system that are active polling places. They're getting a card to say if they're available, so we could have 300 yeses once we go through the consolidation period and determine our voting precincts depending on what's going to ballot. Then we can decide how many locations we're going to need for what purposes depending on what goes to ballot. So there's a process, and I encourage the committee and any members of the public to come in as we start that process. So 82 days before the election is the closing of the extension period of candidate filing. From that point, we will be consolidating precincts and then building a ballot. And so if you're interested in how this starts from the very beginning, I highly encourage everyone to participate. Shout out to Rhea Jones. I think she's here. She's asked to get a phone call from my office the day we start ballot build so she can see what that's about. So I want to just commend her on being willing to hear, hey, let's get started in the beginning and see what this looks like. And then from there, if we run into a couple places where, hey, we don't have a precinct in this, or a polling location in this specific area, we can all come together and figure out, well, what can we do? What group? Somebody might say, hey, Olivia, you may not know about this group out here that could help with that, or whatever it may be. It's definitely a group effort.
Okay, and through the chair, just one more comment.
I'm going to give the chair back to you in a minute.
Yeah. I guess my concern is the waiting until. I want to see a proactive effort to put as many polling places in those neighborhoods and in areas as possible. And so maybe somebody from the committee could be her liaison to say, where are we at with, same day voting? It gives us a project to work on. Thank you.
If there no one else, I'd like to piggyback off your comments, Supervisor. I think I think all of us want to have good elections, honest elections, and when we raised some points, and it was one of the meetings, and you and I had, and our county administrative officer had differences of opinion as to where monies come from. You're not expected to screen every 501c3 entity, but when that entity is an avowed socialist, like George Soros, and I'm saying that publicly, and he's feeding our county money and goodies, I'm suspicious, no matter what the money's used for. We have the so-called Zuckerbucks, and these people are all driving the voting process towards mail-in. There's no encouragement of in-person. We do more public, I've been cut off here. We do more public encouragement of mailing in boxes than we do in voting in person. And so there's things that still have to be worked out. We have honest disagreements. But I think after these three presentations, and the sheriff submitted a number of recommendations. And Mr. Robb submitted a number of recommendations, as did the Dropbox folks. So I think as a committee, if we're going to make a real recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, we ought to work it out, speak with a majority at least, not one voice, and then tell the supervisors, this is what we think. We are from the community, and we read the community pretty well. So I think the next meeting, and I didn't want to cut anybody else off if you have any comments, but I think it's time, like I said, fish should cut bait, and we'll take the supervisor's recommendations seriously. But then I think that we should have a meeting and decide which one of these things that we can make a recommendation about. These people took their time to come here and tell us what they thought, whether real or unreal, was wrong with the system, and which would give us more credibility. So I think that's where we're at. And unless anyone has an objection or last comments, I'm going to suggest a meeting date.
I have a last comment. I do want, as a collaborating working group, I think that Olivia or somebody from her office be a part of that committee, because incorporating stuff, they know what's in the past, they know what's going on now. They need to be a big part of that committee.
They are.
Okay.
They are.
Okay.
So with that, I'm suggesting our next meeting be October, is is that right? I can't even read my own writing. 12th, is that a Thursday or? And I suggest we put on, yes, it is Thursday, 6 o'clock, and put on our thinking caps as to where we want to go collectively. Is there any objection?
What was the date again?
12th, October the 12th.
Oh, okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
If it's okay, we actually have an ROV staff event that day where we're actually celebrating our staff and what we're doing with the community picnic with our staff or as we gear up for election. So is there any way for the committee to maybe consider having that any other Thursday, maybe a little bit later down the road?
We are
Like that following week. I mean, it's up to you. I just wanted to share.
We're
If you
not
want to come,
invited.
you're more than welcome to come say hello to all the staff if you'd like. Absolutely.
I know everybody would like to spend their Friday the 13th here, but maybe the 11th, Wednesday 11th would be better. You have alternates, but we got to go to work. Suggest another date. I'm very open to the dates.
Chair, how about Thursday, October the 19th, the week after?
Someone will always have a conflict, but the 19th is good for me. You have an alternate too. All right, the 19th then, Thursday the 19th. And with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
you